Thank you. Okay, it's good to see everybody. Welcome to New Galoka. Of course, we get our big crowd at the end of class because everyone's coming to eat prasadam rather than to hear a class. So we will speak, at least on the internet, I'll have a lot of people. So you'll hear some Krishna Katha tonight. Mala. Because everyone's clapping because the garland's so nice. It's hard to figure it out. Anyway, so it's good to see everybody. And we just came back from a trip to the South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand. PJ came back last night. And New Zealand. Yeah, Australia, New Zealand, Fiji. And we're happy to be back here for a while. Oh, Hare Krishna. So, it's good to see everybody. It's been a long time. Okay. So tonight, we're going to have a class about anarthas. As painful as that may sound, we're going to try to speak positively about anarthas. For those of you who don't know what anarthas are, that means something you don't want. What don't you want? An old car, debt? No, that's not what we're talking about. There's a lot of things in this world that you don't want, but we're not going to talk about things in this world that you don't want, like cold weather, hot weather, and things like that. We're going to talk about those things that you don't want that are impediments insofar as the progress, spiritual progress and devotional service. So first we'll chant Jai Radha Madhava from the Hari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopinana Pallava Girivarudhate. Gopinana Pallava Girivarudhate. Yasunanandana Rajajanurandana Sunanandana Rajajanuranjana Yamuna Chera Banachate Yamuna Chera Banachate Jayarad Uma Kunda Bihare. Jaya Radhu Madhova Kunda Bihare. Upinana Manava Giri Bharatari. Gopijana Vallabha Giri Bharatari. Upinana Vallabha Giri Bharatari. Yasurandana Rajajana Ranjana Yasodananda Rajajana Ranjana Amona Tera Manachare Yamuna Tera Manachare Jayarad Umadhuva Kunjave Hare Radha Madhava Kunjave Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjave Hare Radha Madhava Kunjave Hare Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parvadakacharya also tell us Shima, His Divine Grace. Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivinoda Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Jai. Namacharya Srila Vilas Thakur Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shigweda Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Gajai Shishi Radha Krishna Gopadath Sayam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Gijai Vrinda Gajai Gajai Jagannath Gajai Yamunamai Gajai Shimati Lasadi Gajai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Gajai Gaur Parivananda, Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya. Budale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Samani Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi. Gauravani Pacharani Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschacha. Deja Tarane. Somaganatividanda Shagananjana Shlakaya Chakshur. Unmeditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So it's good to see such a brother back in action. Yeah, so he went through an operation and he's recovered. Great. Great to see you. So, as I mentioned, today we're going to talk about an art. There's things you don't want, and you may see it. You won't be able to read it. It's so small. That's all right. We're trying to show you how many sources of anartha there are, but we're going to zoom in to individual ones so you're going to be able to read them in a second. So this class is primarily taken from the Bhajan Rahasya, a book by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, for those of you who don't know, is the spiritual master of Srila Gaurakishodas Babaji Maharaj, is the spiritual master of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is the spiritual master of His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And it's partially taken from the Madhurya Kadambini written by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So, but basically most of it's from the Bhajan Rahasya, because there's a little bit different analyses of the Anarthas in the Bhajan Rahasya and the Madhurya Kadambini. So we're going to talk about Anarthas, the things that are impediments. And you'll see here, we're going to zoom in. You can see now? Yeah, if you can. If you can't see, I'll read it. So Anarthas, they're things that lead to material bondage and miseries. So why are we miserable? Anyone know? What? We forgot Krishna and we're attached to things that we are not, and we are attached to things that we think we have. There's two things, I and what else? Mine. That's good. No, I'm just testing you all, keep you all awake. I and mine. I am this body. I am a member of this family. I'm a member of this nation. I'm a member of this religion. I'm a member of the human race. It's not true either, because it's not. None of you are human beings. Oh my God, is he insulting us? No, none of you are human beings because you're a spirit soul. You're in a human body, hopefully. But in your human body, you may not be acting like a human. Of course, most people in this room will be acting like humans because you're focused on spiritual life, hopefully. If you're not focused on spiritual life, then you're acting like an what? Animal. What are the four things the animals do? Eat, sleeping, mating, defending. So if that's your whole life, I mean, obviously we have to eat. I mean, I ate before I came here. So it's not that I'm calling myself an animal. So obviously we have to eat and sleep and do all these other things. But if that's our whole life and there's no other purpose to our life other than that, it's useless. Useless because it's taken away by the time factor. Temporary, in one sense, Krishna says, Nasato vijate bhavo, na bhavo vijate sataha, ubayor api turishtavantas, 20 tatvadarshvi. The sages think it's unreal in one sense because it's temporary. Because 100 years from now, probably no one will remember us. In 500 years, probably, if the earth is still here, we haven't destroyed it by then certainly no one will remember us. So we want to do something, not so that people remember us. That's not the point. So that we have something eternal, that we're doing something important, some with overriding importance. And that's why it's important to take up spiritual life and have a spiritual purpose. And so if you don't, that sort of misery is not having a purpose. It's also you're subjected to the material miseries, what is it? Adipnotic, adipodic, adidaivic miseries. Miseries from the body and mind, miseries from other living entities, miseries from material energy. And so we want to get out of these miseries. And then above all that, we want to be happy, right? Everybody wants to be happy. Not that we simply want to get rid of miseries, because that's a neutral state. Simply getting rid of misery. It's like Buddhism. Get rid of the miseries, end of suffering, but then what happens after that? So what's impeding us are things called anarthas. Of course, there's positive things too. Like in yoga, you have two aspects. One is called yam, and what's the second one? Anyone know? Niyam, which means the positive injunctions. Yam means what not to do. But what not to do comes before what to do. Why? Because if you're going to get clean, you have to make sure you're not rubbing mud all over yourself. Right? Like if you have a child, the child's playing in the mud. You don't give the child a bath while he's playing in the mud. Do you? That's pretty stupid. You say, get out of the mud, kid. Not kid. My dear son. Get get out of the mud, then I'll give you a bath. Because otherwise, giving someone a bath while they're in the mud is kind of ridiculous. So therefore, the yam comes before the niyam. But the yam can be put in a positive way, which is what we're going to try to do tonight. So that negative instructions can be expressed positively. Instead of saying, get out of the mud, come to a clean place. You know, so it's a positive thing, because when you give people a negative or something not to do, the not to do thing becomes very attractive. You know, if I tell you to go on a diet, for example, and you cannot eat rotis anymore, okay? You're prohibited from eating rotis. This is pretty miserable, isn't it? But if I tell you, well, you can eat pakoras instead, fried in ghee, or you can eat puris. No more rotis for you, but you can have puris fried in ghee with sugar on top of it. And you say, oh, forget about those rotis, isn't it? So instead of bread, you can eat pizza. So you give people, excuse me, if you give someone a positive alternative, then it automatically gets rid of the negative. Okay, so without further ado, because we don't have all day to talk about this, so when Nartha's lead, this is spelling is wrong, of course, leady. I did this real quickly, you know, it happens. To material bondage and misery. So we're going to talk about the different types of anarthas. And there's 4 types described in this particular analysis. Let's go to anarthas all the way to the left. Anarthas due to someone having a weakness of heart. My God. That means, you know, no determination, no focus, or anything like that. It's just like your mind is all over the place and you have no goal in life. So there's 4 manifestations of these anarthas that have come from weakness of heart, which is called Hriya Dora Valyam. One is attachments to objects not related to Krishna. So let me unpack that a little bit. What's an object? Can anyone think about that? What's an object not related to Krishna that one might get attached to? Money, a particular type of car. Oh, what? Mumbai? Oh, what's that? A phone. A phone. Yeah, that's not related to Krishna. Mobile. They call them mobile now. Nobody uses the word phone anymore. TikTok. Anyone's heard of TikTok? People spend 8 or 10 hours a day. I know some people who spend hours and hours looking at TikTok every day. Oh my God. It's because you're not focused. What is that? If you have a Sayatmik Abud here, we should be focused on a particular goal. Even materially, it doesn't work if your mind is just all over the place. Okay, that's one type of weakness of heart. So in other words, anyway, the solution, I said I would give it positive. Okay. We have to be focused on some objective or goal, or what we would call in Sanskrit, sankalpa. Like many people, they have trouble hearing when they're chanting rounds, hearing and focusing, everything like that. So if you're focused on why you're chanting, then you're more likely to be focused on the chanting. So that's how you overcome weakness of heart. And so the next type of deceitfulness, can you actually read it up there a little bit? Yeah. Next type of weakness of heart is called deceitfulness. Deceitfulness and fault finding. Deceitfulness means telling a lie or lying to oneself. That's interesting. That you think that you are more spiritually advanced than you actually are. You think that you're more important than you actually are. And therefore you find fault in other people. So instead, what's the solution? We should understand we're servants of the servants of the servants of the Lord who maintains gopis in Vrindavan. We're humble. Amanina, Amanadena. We're meant to offer respects to everyone. And we should consider ourselves lower than the straw in the street. As Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Trinadapi Sunichena, Taradiva Sihishnana, Amanina Amanadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. So we're pointing out things to look out for in one's own consciousness, and basically some methods of counteracting those things if we find them in our consciousness. And we should be introspective enough to look inside to see, are these things there? You know, all of us should honestly look at ourselves, and we should also have friends so we can reveal our minds to them. I have this particular challenge. I'm not saying problem. This particular challenge, this particular, this challenge. I'm not going to say problem. Anyway, challenge is good enough. I have this particular challenge in my life, and be vulnerable. Vulnerable means be ready to admit it to others, at least in the society of devotees. The next one is enviousness. In Sanskrit, it's called matsarya. Matsarya means that we're envious of what someone has or what someone is. What does that mean? That we want what they have. So the solution to that, or we want their position. So the solution to that is actually given in the Upanishad. Ishavashamidam sarvam yatkincha jagajam jagat tena jiktena bunjidha magridha kashasvidhanam. What is the solution? Everything is actually owned by Krishna, and everyone gets a quota to be used in his service. Some people are given more, some people are given less. And some people are given more intelligence. Some people are given more beauty. Some people are given more money. Right? Krishna says in the Gita also, he says, I'm the intelligent of the intelligent. Some people are given more strength than others. I'm the strength of the strong, the intelligence of the intelligent. In fact, everything comes from Krishna, and everything is owned by Krishna, and everything is meant to be used in his service. So the way to overcome this is we glorify other people, particularly the people you feel green about. What do I mean by green? Color of envy is green. You know, like you see people who are envious that they scrunch up sometimes. Almost look like Dracula or something, some monster. So instead, we glorify the person that we feel envious of. We should glorify. We should pray for. How about that? Person you are upset with. And the final one, the weakness of heart, is desire for fame. That's profit, adoration, distinction. These are the three aspects of what is called subtle sex life. That one wants to be worshipped. Why? Because one wants to be like God. Ishwaroham, ahambolaki, siroham balavan sukhi. This is what Krishna says in the Gita. That we are thinking that I am perfect, I am powerful, and I am the happiest. Right? So it's basically, instead, again, glorify others. By glorifying others, then you put others higher. And by putting others higher, then your desire for fame goes away. and also you feel happy. Because when you desire fame, you're going to be in anxiety about keeping that position, right? Plus, you're going to be surrounded, if you have fame, you'll be surrounded by a lot of paparazzis. The paparazzis are photographers. Sometimes I get upset. People want to take a lot of photographs. So the next time, the source of offenses, or sorry, the source of anarthas is called aparadas. Aparadas means offenses against others. And so there's different types of offenses. One type is the offense against Krishna's name. And of course, I'm not going to talk about the 10 offenses here. That would be a whole discussion, a separate discussion. Curtain, ghost. Oh, Savirata. I thought it was a ghost. Okay, so there's a offense against Krishna's name, and the way we counteract that is we understand that Krishna and Krishna's name are non-different, and we should be very respectful towards Krishna's name. There's offenses towards Krishna's form, and of course that means the deity worship, and that's also there's lists of those offenses in the Nectar of Devotion, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And so we should always have the utmost respect. The positive joy should have the utmost respect with the deity. Sakshad Brajendra Nandana. Krishna is there on the altar. And so we should approach him in an awe and reverent mood. Then there's offenses towards devotees. Wow. And what do you think is the positive way to avoid that? To serve the devotees. That's right. We should serve. We should never think that we're the master. We should always think that we're servants of everyone else. Gopi Bharta Padakamala, Dasa Dasa, Dasana Dasa. No matter what our position is, we should always remember that. Just like recently, I've been reading about certain reports about people in religious societies, and we're not immune to this, who get a very high position. They start off being very, very humble and having a good attitude. They get a very high position in a particular religious society, and then they succumb to so many difficulties because they've committed offenses against others and consider themselves more prominent and important than others. They don't remember the point that they're servants. So the next one is offenses towards other entities. And that means any other living entity, even bugs. Just like today, I saw a big spider in my house. So what do you think I did? I put him outside. I didn't smack him. I didn't get angry with him. What are you doing in my house? So that means treating all living entities kindly, seeing everyone as part and parcel of Krishna. So we have to be very, very careful, even with dealing with people who are not spiritually inclined. We should be kind to them. Devotee, Prabhupada said, is a perfect gentleman or a perfect lady. Nowadays, I guess there's other choices. You understand what I mean? But anyway, perfect gentleman or a perfect lady. And we shouldn't offend anybody. And actually, one way to avoid this is to follow Krishna's injunction in the Bhagavad Gita about austerity of speech. He says the austerity of speech is Sacha Priya Hitam. That whenever you speak, you should speak in a pleasing way, a truthful way, and a beneficial way. And before you open your mouth to speak, think about these three things. Is what I'm going to say truthful? Is what I'm going to say beneficial? And is what I'm going to say pleasing to the other person or person? So think about that. Okay. So apparatus, the next one is Asat Trishna. And some of these different sources of anarthas overlap, as you'll see. Like in the beginning, we talked about the material, attached material objects. So that may seem very similar to desire for material objects. It's a little bit different. Of course, the desire for material objects means to use an object in our particular uh, service or sense gratification, not service so much, uh, and not to use it for Krishna. And attachment means just like the attachment without even using it, like you're attached to a particular country, you're attached to a particular type of car. Just like when I look at the news, if I see some news about a Tesla, I'll read that news. But if I see some news about a Ford, I won't read that news. So that's attachment to a certain material objects. Got to be honest. Like I said, you got to be vulnerable and admit what your attachments are. So anyway, so but your desire for material objects. So that means desire to possess those material objects, desire to enjoy those material objects. And the second one is desire for heavenly comforts. Of course, we do need a certain amount of comfort in this world. Everybody needs a certain, like Prabhupada said, everyone needs a certain amount of sense gratification, just like you need a certain amount of salt in your prasadam. But too much, what? Will make you sick, and too little will be tasteless, and you lose your enthusiasm, maybe go crazy too. So, so therefore, you have to understand the middle ground. That is what you need in order to be comfortable in this world, but not more than what you need to be comfortable in this world. So what are my necessities? Not simply what are my desires. And desires, here's another one. I don't think too many of you have this particular desire. I know one devotee in the back has this desire. Where is he? Desires for mystic, yeah. Desires for mystic powers. Then don't look around. Like sometimes someone will be very attached to all these superheroes and everything like that. And so that's desires for mystic. You know, it's a mundane expression. I can see some of you are taking this to heart, right? He does, right? That's what I thought. He looked very guilty when I mentioned that. So, of course, most of us aren't thinking of executing hatha yoga and getting some big mystic powers. But at the same time, we are thinking of some of us are you think of using technology, like what is it, Chat GPT, and getting greater powers through technology. And other people are just looking at these so-called superheroes, these fictional superheroes, and admiring them. So we should be satisfied with whatever powers or position or prestige Krishna has given us, because everyone has an equal right to Krishna consciousness. Krishna says in the Gita, Samoham sarvabhuteshu, name dvesho stinapriya. He said, I'm equal to everyone. No one is especially dear, and no one is my enemy. So everyone gets an equal opportunity. Krishna is an equal opportunity employer. And so what makes us happy is not mystic powers, not prestige, not money, none of these things. What makes us happy is having our loving propensity fully satisfied. And that can only be fully satisfied spiritually. Savai pungsam parodharma yato bhakti rahutsaje. Ahaituke pratyata yatma suprasidate. So that's love, to serve Krishna and serve the devotees without any expectation, to serve Krishna and the devotees in an unimpeded way and without any material cause. That's a verse from the Bhagavatam. And we see the perfect example of that is His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who came over to the Western world without any material cause for his actions except the order of his spiritual master, which was not a material cause. And it was unimpeded. And so, in every circumstance, on the way over, Srila Prabhupada endured 2 heart attacks. Now, any of you who have ever endured a heart attack, I know Satyavrata had one, right? So, how much time did you have to spend in the hospital after having a heart attack? What's that? What? I can't hear. All right. So, a long time ago. But it's not that the next day you just went enthusiastically and started preaching Krishna consciousness and working, was it? No. Anybody else who's had a heart attack here? No. Yeah, your father had. How long after? What happened after that? He was in the hospital. But Srila Prabhupada was in the boat with 2 heart attacks. And he kept on going and preaching and left the boat. And he went immediately to preach. That's apratiyata, is the Sanskrit word for that, unimpeded in all circumstances. So, of course, none of us probably will come to that particular level of devotional service, but that's the quality, that's love. And so when we can come to the platform of that causeless love, then we'll be happy, and that's what will satisfy the self. The Atma supersedati. That's the only thing that will satisfy the self. Love for Krishna and love for all Krishna's parts and parcels, and especially love for Krishna's devotees, loving exchanges. So that's the solution of desires for mystic powers, and also the solution for desire for liberation. Desire for liberation means I simply want to end it all. This life is so miserable, or the universe, or nothing has any meaning. I just want to end everything. But that will not bring you satisfaction. That's simply a negation of the suffering. And the last source of anarthas is Tattva Vibhrama, which means illusion about spiritual knowledge. Now, this is a very common one because in the spiritual marketplace, there's so many different ideas, especially now. So many books about spirituality, so many religions, so many paths, so many gurus, so many spiritual leaders and avatars, so many incarnations. I'm not talking about the Dasha avatars. I'm talking about people who come down, don't come down. They came up, sorry. And they declare themselves to be incarnations of Krishna. So there's so many, there's confusing. It's a whole marketplace out there. And so we should understand the aspects, the philosophical aspects of Krishna consciousness, what's called sambandha, abhideya, and prayojana, in order to overcome this particular source of anarthas. Sambandha means to understand who is Krishna, who and also who are the living entities, and thirdly, what is Krishna's energy, or who is Krishna's energy? So Vishnu Shakti Para Parapta Kshetra Tata Para Avidya Karma Sangyanya Tritir Shakti Ishate. It's described in the Vishnu Purana that there's the tattvas are Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entities, and his energies, such as the material energy and spiritual energy. So we have to understand this tattva. This is called sambandha gyan. Now, above that, there's also abhideya, Gyan, which means how to perform devotional service in knowledge of the tattvas. And then above that is the prayojana, which is the goal of spiritual life. So these are different types of illusion that arise that are sources of anartha. One is called swa-tattva, Brahma. That means illusion about one's own identity. So what is our identity? What? What? Give me a verse. Yeah, identity is what? There's another verse I'm looking for. Swami Vansa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana Alashakshani Indriyani Prakriti Stani Parshati. So we're living entities who are struggling with the material energy. And there's one other verse I was thinking a second ago. So there was that verse, Mami Vangsa Jiva Loke. We're angsas of Krishna, parts and parcels of Krishna. And we're eternal spirit souls. This is the first thing that Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad Gita. Then the second one is Paratatva Brahma, which means illusion about God. So that's easy to overcome. We just understand that God, well, there's a generic name. God is omniscient, omnipotent, all-knowing, and all unlimited. He's unlimited. So, and his original aspect is Krishna. The next one is Saja Sadhana Brahma. This is illusion about sadhana and prema. So that's abhidaya and prayojana right there. So in order to avoid that, we read the books of the acharyas, such as Srila Rupa Goswami's book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and also when we are able to be fully knowledgeable about Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we can read other books like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's book, Madhurya Kadambini, and the Vajana Rahasya, which I'm quoting from today. And the final type of tattva, Brahma, is Virodi Vishaya Brahma, illusion about unfavorable subjects to Krishna consciousness. So that means that there are subjects which are contrary to Krishna consciousness or cannot be used in Krishna service. And if we get too much into thinking that those things will help us advance spiritually, you may be able to utilize some of that knowledge. Like Krishna says in the Ishopanishad, that we should cultivate a certain amount of material knowledge in order to perform service to him. But that material knowledge is not going to help us perform bhakti. It can actually help us in this world to remain stable, but it may not help us. You're not going to become Krishna conscious by studying psychology, for example. It may help you in your particular occupation. It may help you serve the devotees, but what you need to become Krishna conscious is the chanting of Krishna's name purely and the performance of bhakti yoga. So anyway, so this is a summary of the different types of anarthas, which we see here. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who I mentioned in the beginning, gives a slightly different analysis of the anarthas, and I'll cite that analysis. I don't have it here on the screen. He says that anarthas come from sinful activities, they come from pious activities, they come from anarthas, which is one of the same categories here, and they also come from bhakti. Now, that may seem unusual that he's mentioning that anarthas can come from bhakti. Well, anarthas come from bhakti because bhakti can, or the performance of bhakti can enable us to have a high position in which people respect us. And then we get into some of the anarthas mentioned here, the desire for prestige, the desire for respect. So in order to perform devotional service, one has to be aware of these anarthas, and positively, one doesn't have to, you don't have to do anything. One should, if one wants to progress in devotional service, one should perform the positive aspects of bhakti, such as hearing, chanting, remembering, the 9 processes of devotional service. In any case, bhakti means that one should be introspective, examine one's motives, uh, think about one's goals in life, and ultimately serve the devotees and serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then one will be assured of perfection. So any questions or comments on any of these points? Yeah. What's that? Speak louder. Oh, yeah, anarthas come from apparatus. Anarthas come from apparatus. They come from offenses. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that's not this analysis here. Anarthas come from offenses to, well, this is actually, yeah, apparatus. They're a source of apparatus. I mean, anarthas, sorry. Apparatus are a source of anarthas, unwanted things. What are the, all right, we didn't even talk about what anarthas are. I forgot all about it. Anarthas are lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, fear. These are the 6 main anarthas. There's other ones. Lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, fear. Madhamatsarya Bhariyabhaya. Kama Krodha Madhamatsarya Bhariyabhaya. Got it? So lust, anger, illusion, envy, fear. So those are what we call anarthas. They impede the progress of our devotional service. Yeah. Yeah. What were the material desires? Okay. Yeah. What's that? Yeah, yeah. Wait. Liberation in this particular sense. Yeah, Bhagavatam talks about, the verse she recited talks about the 3 aspects of the absolute: Brahman, Bhagavan, and Paramatma. So desire for liberation means that we are desiring to get out of the material world. That's a material desires. You're suffering, you want to get out. That's material. It's not that Brahman is material. However, the desire to get rid of suffering is material. What? Why is it material? Because it's based upon a self-centered consideration. Anything that's not based upon the desire to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead is, in one sense, material. Because what's the definition of material according to the Bhagavatam? Does anyone know? Anyone know the Chatushloki verse? It's a test. If you know this verse, you get an A. Starts with an R. Rite Ritam. No one knows it. Napratieta. Napratieta Chatmani. Tad Vidyad Atmanomayam Yata Basha Yata Tamahat. Anyone know it now? No? Krishna defines material in this verse. He says, anything you see without relationship to me, know that to be my illusory energy, which is like a reflection that appears in darkness. Vite ritam, napritieta. Now you can look it up. Napritieta jatmani. Yeah. Tadvidyad atmano mayam yata basha yata tamaha. How's that sound? I would project it on the screen, but it would take it too long to do that. You got it? What's the citation on that? Part of the Chatra Shloka. Vate ritam napratyeta napratyeta chatmane tadvijad atmano mayam yata brasa yata tamaha. Okay. So anyway, you look it up later. That's the Krishna's definition of material. Anything that has no relationship to him is material. Yes. Salokya is not material. Salokya, Samipya, Sarsti, these are not material liberations. Or Sarupya. Sarupya. Found it? 2934. Read it. Yorite Ratam. Read the translation. See? That's Krishna's definition. Got it? Okay, any other questions? No? Oh, in the back. Gopal. Yeah, it's there on the screen. We are fortunate that we're in Kali Yuga right now. Because in Kali Yuga, you're not responsible for your thoughts. Thank God. In Kali Yuga, you're responsible for things you say or do. How about that? However, there's a but there. However, there's this thing called thinking, feeling, willing. So when you think of something and you think of it, keep thinking of it, you begin to will it and you begin to do it. It comes out. So what happens if it comes into your mind? You shouldn't think, oh, it's Kali Yuga. No problem. You rascal, thinking something like that person's a jerk, a rascal, an idiot, a fool, got a lot of nice words. And you should immediately start to think something positive about the person. Immediately, that's the solution. Instead of thinking negatively, you just think, oh, that person did something right. Everyone does something right. Just like a broken clock, at least a regular clock, not a digital clock. A broken clock has the right time twice a day. So you would say, what a nice clock that is. I'd like the design. No, that clock does the right time. So think positively. Yeah. It'll come out. It leads to aparad, yeah. It's not quite an aparad until one expresses it. However, it can cause anarthas to arise in the heart, even if one doesn't express it. And then that's not under the, that's another one. Anyway, yeah, that's under Hridaya Darabalya. You understand? Even though it's not an aparada at that point, it's weakness of the heart. So one is meant to control the mind. Okay? Yes. Oh, okay. Jadharani. Yeah, that's right. That's right. The whole fault finding mentality. Yeah, it's more serious. Good point. Good point. Any fault finding mentality. Of course, that doesn't mean that we don't correct people. Like if someone does something, let someone puts salt in the sweet rice, it's happened. It's happened. Actually, one time someone put salt in the Charanamrita, not here, and Prabhupada took it. So it's not that the person doesn't correct you. You just say, well, not going to find fault in you. It's, your Charanamrita tasted really nice today. No, you say Satcha Prihitam, you go through that particular standard, and you say there was salt in the sweet rice or salt in the Charanamrita. Not a good idea. Would you be willing? Anyway, sometimes it requires a little bit of heaviness. Like probably got pretty heavy when that happened. He said, who has done this? And so sometimes it's not so pleasing, but it has the benefit. So it's necessary. Yeah, it's necessary to correct people according to the person's position and your position, the person giving instruction. Okay, if there's no other questions, yes. We reveal our minds when it is helpful to us and helpful to the other person. It could be if it's fault finding. It's a fine line. So we reveal our mind, you go through the hitam, such a pre-hitam, when it is actually beneficial to talk about someone. Now, we're not just talking about devotees, we're talking about anybody. When it's beneficial to talk about them, beneficial to yourself, beneficial to others, and it's not harmful. But simply to talk negatively about people is called prajalpa, unnecessary talk. Okay, I think we have to end now. So we have an announcement. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for such a wonderful class about anarthas. Sometimes, sometimes there are these anarthas that are actually there. We just don't recognize it unless we have Maharaj actually educate us all about it. And so now that it's out there, I think we would all make a conscious effort to recognize it. Oh, that's that anartha in that category. Let me just watch out for that. So thank you very much, Maharaj, for giving us this wonderful guidance, this wonderful wisdom. Such a wonderful class. Let's give Maharaj a big Haribol and thank him for the class. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. So we have a couple of announcements.